What has God done for you lately? I ask this because this is something that has been on my mind every single day, especially if I notice it a lot more in the last 5 years, because in the last 5 years specifically, I've noticed how I've been trying to live out what some of you guys might have noticed. I call it dream life, and how I've been trying to do what I dream to do, when, you know, it's not always easy to follow your dreams. And so with that being a big part of my brand, with that being a big part of my brand, I wanted to kind of take time today to share with you in real life the ways that God has taught me to learn how to live my dream life, but in God's way, in God's time, and in God's manner. So who do we have here today? Hi, we have Welbert Rodrigo. What's up, Welbert? I believe Welbert is from Brazil. So our first fan here today is an international fan. Love to see you here, Welbert. Welbert is one of my big freestyle fans because as a dance recording artist, I've always experimented with my favorite dance music styles, and when I was growing up, freestyle was the first genre that I experimented with and had fun with. And throughout the years, if you listen to all my albums, I have 5 albums. You can check them out on Spotify if you stream, but if you'd love to support me as an artist, head on over to SharynLand.com. That's SHARYN land, LAND.com, and support the CDs that we have out there for you. So, hi, Rachel. So, back to the question of what has God done for you lately. I think one of the biggest things that I had to face and confront and deal with in the last 5 years, honestly, were kind of fears of making it just on a survival level, because you know, the world is a wild place to live in, right? The world is a wild place to live in. And, growing up, I've been able to do music my entire life. I've always had support from family. And as I got older, I got married and things like that. And so I have support from my husband, and we have support from our families together. But at the same time, I think the way that the world puts things into our minds, it still puts things into our minds that we have to provide. We have to have things all together. And in the last 5 years, that's something that I definitely had to struggle with. It's something that I definitely had challenges with in learning how to deal with my own fears, how to deal with my own struggles, how to deal with my own challenges, despite how much support I may have, and how much, just how much support you may have. You might have support, you might not have support. We're all having different journeys. But the one thing that no matter what I had to remember, that God is actually our provider, right? And so that was a lesson I had to keep learning over and over. What's up, Bernardo? Thank you. Bernardo is in the building. Bernardo is one of the people on my team who has supported me with graphic design. So if you love graphic design, check out some of his work. He is amazing. He did the cover for Numb. So yeah, so that, to show my scars, the truth is that when I felt like I had to start adulting, I really had to face my fears of thinking the way that the world thinks, which is we have to provide, we have to be financially independent, we have to have it all together, we always have to have money. And full transparency, there have been many times in my adult life where I had to look around and go like, where, like, am I going to get my next dollar? How am I going to get to the next day? And like I said, I think I felt my most adult in marriage life. And like I said, even though I have the support of my husband, I have the support of our families, it doesn't matter if in your mind you're thinking to yourself, no, it relies on me. And that's the kind of mindset that I had, and that's the kind of mindset that God had to kind of break me and release me from. Hi there, we have my cousin Caress from the Philippines. Hello. And so that has been probably the biggest chapter and challenge and thing I've had to overcome, because one of the things we always talk about, we always say to each other, like, how are we going to get to the next day? How are we going to get to the next week? How are we going to get to the next month? How are we going to get to the next year? And I always say, because in the last 5 years, the reason why I say in the last 5 years, partly because, like I said, it's like the time I felt I've been the most adulting in my life, but also because that's when God answered one of my biggest prayers. And, oops, hi, Atilek. And one of my biggest prayers was, even though I've been an artist all my life and I've released 5 albums now, my last one that we just released is Queen of Dreams. The one big prayer that I asked in the last several years was that I wanted to be a full-time artist. I wanted to stay at home, and I wanted to create businesses where it is all based off of me being an artist or an entrepreneur. So basically what that means is that, hi. So what that means is that I wanted all of my work to, stop, I'm on the camera. Come here. Oops. I wanted all of my business to come from doing things that I love. I wanted it to be based off of me being able to serve my audience, my fans. I wanted it to be based off of me being my own boss, and just like literally trying to live out my dream life, right? Because my dream life was not to work in a job that's not my calling. My dream is not to work in a job where I'm just using my talents, but not my purpose and not my God-given gift, right? And so I've done that before, you know, throughout my long life. I feel like I've kind of done some of the things the safe way. When I was growing up, my mom was adamant about me finishing college, and loving music so much, it was hard for me to buckle down and go to school. So I went to school for such a long time. But in the end, you know, I kind of did what she asked me to do, and I went to university, and I learned a lot there, and I ended up graduating from college, and I at one point really did a kind of adult 9 to 5 corporate job, kind of the couple of years before I got married. And it was the strangest time in my life, because being an artist, that was kind of like the life that I had lived for so long. And then to go to doing something that doesn't seem like my complete identity or like the place that I belonged, it was really, really weird. And so I kind of felt like a fish out of water, and I really felt like I was living this life that wasn't mine. And I was doing that for several years. And long story short, I just remember like crying out to God, praying on the way to work, like, God, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to be my own boss. I want to be a full-time singer. I want that to be my life. And I literally could hear God telling me in my spirit that it would happen for me. And his literal words was, when you release this song that I was working on at the time, it was a cover song. It's a Christian-based song called God Only Knows. God told me, when you release this song, your life will flow. And I heard it. I heard the voice. I heard the sentence, but my heart and my spirit couldn't really accept it yet. So I was like still on the hunt for new work. And after a week, I said, what am I doing? God already told you he's in control. He has it together. And so I surrendered at that point. This was like a year before 2020. And I surrendered. And in March of 2020, that's when I decided to release God Only Knows. And immediately, right then, that is when we got a huge announcement from the government that everyone had to stay home, that there was going to be a pandemic. And nothing like that had ever happened in my life. And so at that moment, I had to start working from home, which was one of my dreams. A few months later, I was let go from my job, and they laid me off from my job. And that was the other big dream that I had prayed for, because I had prayed that I wanted to, number one, stay at home, but number two, have the possibility of being my own boss. And so, hi, Jose. And so, so those two big dreams occurred in 2020, and that was the beginning of my kind of adulting, the beginning of my adult life, and the beginning of me trusting in God to help me in a space that I'm not used to, which is the space of really relying on God in a place, in a time, and in a feeling of never depending on someone more than like my own family. Like when I had support from my own family, there's this kind of security that I felt with that. And I think once I got into getting married, and once I got into that part of adulthood, there was this different mindset where you go, okay, now it's us. Now we have to rely on each other. And then still, even though you have that partnership, depending on how you were raised, there were still things within myself where I'm like, okay, but I still have to be supportive, and I still have to like help, kind of thing. And in the last couple of years, it was God really who was showing me that above everyone who's ever supported you in your life, the person that we are supposed to rely on the most is God. And I kept seeing that over and over again, because my own fears would take over me day by day, week by week. And not like fears like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared, but just saying the idea of like not understanding God is in control. That's what I mean by the fear, not understanding. And so when you believe that you are in control of everything, you're in control of your finances, you're in control of how the day is going to get flow from day to day. That's the kind of fear that I'm talking about. And, when the days flow into weeks, flow into months, into years, and God is still in control. And, I'd even see other people who would have far harder lives than I did. I would still see God who had, people that had, yeah, harder lives than I did from the very beginning. But then yet you'll still see sometimes they'll succeed even more, right? And so those are the different types of blessings that God gives each and every one of us. It's different ways, it's different journeys that we'll all have. But, I would just read the Bible and see the different ways that God promised us how he's going to provide. And then me having to see how he was able to do that, and my life from the point where I had to really trust in him up till now. It's not to say that it was never without fear, it was never without challenges, or to say that it was never hard. That's not what I'm saying, but what I'm saying is that God always followed up with his promise, which was that he would say, if you read certain chapters in the Bible, he would say, don't worry about tomorrow, right? Because tomorrow has enough problems of its own. If you guys want to see the scriptures, the exact scriptures, you can ask me and I can put it in the comments. But I'm just like paraphrasing it, Or he would say, why are you worried that I won't provide for you? The birds in the sky, they don't have to do anything, and I provide for them. Aren't you more valuable than they? And I remember one time going like, I don't know. What's up, Bob? Hello, Talish. Hi, Talish. I just liked on one of your posts the other day. Thank you so much. Anyways, my phone is getting hot. So it's a little hot outside, and the little doggy's going to get hot too. So I better get inside. But this is a quick little post that I wanted to share with you all to let you know what I mean by dream life. When I talk about dream life, I'm not saying, hey guys, live your perfect life. What I mean by dream life is live out some of your dreams that you want to accomplish, but overall do things with God. And I will tell you that every single day I have to do things with God. When I am down to my last dollar, when I am down to my last dollar, I have to depend on God. And so that's what I do all the time. I do not have the perfect life, but I have a blessed life. I have a good life. And up to this point, God has provided for me every single day. If we have a roof over our head, if we have food on our table. And like I said, I've seen people who have experienced even less than what I've experienced, but they too have managed to get bigger blessings. We don't have to look at what our personal circumstances is, what our circumstances for a specific day, and think that's our entire life. So if you are going through a hard time right now, I've dealt with hard times day in and day out. With God, all things are possible. That, I guess, really is the heartbeat of my brand, is that God is the one who allows us to live out not only our dreams when we can, but literally our day-to-day life. And that is all we have. We have just this one moment right now is what he gives us. So let us be thankful for this moment. Let us be thankful that in this moment we are here to breathe and figure out what he wants us to do for the next step. So I hope that this live blessed you, and I appreciate you. I hope you enjoyed this little dream life confessional moment, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.